Today, I'm going to showcase the story so far of a guy in the Reviv'd community named Ivan, who I met in the middle of September. He lives in Moscow, and I thought his story was really unique. And I've interacted with him a fair bit now through messages mainly, but we also had a call early on, and he's making good progress, and I thought it'd be a good story to highlight. Ivan, he wrote me his story, which I captured in a blog post, but basically, he was having some issues in his childhood. He had scoliosis. When he was in his teens, he started having pelvic pain, but he continued charging forward. He studied programming, got a degree in it, and started working. But then when he was 21, he had a head injury when snow tubing, and he had some pain in the spine. And then as issues got worse, so he had a job as a mobile developer. And then at some point, it hit his ability to kind of think and analyze. And he realized, in his own words, he said he felt dumb. He wasn't able to finish the work that he was doing on the mobile application. Like, he just couldn't think. And so he had to quit. And then in the next months, lots of other things got worse. So, and he had really bad memory impairment. His vision had a lot of different issues, and he had floaters in front of his eyes. He had some impaired coordination of motor skills, panic attacks. He felt a lot of anxiety and depression. He lost sensitivity in some limbs for a while. He had headaches, dizziness, couldn't sleep. And he was a young guy trying to figure out what was going on. And I relate a lot to this story because my story in 2014 was pretty similar. And he, like I did, started just scrambling, like looking for answers and spending a bunch of money on doctors. And they would tell him to do different treatments, and he would do it for a while, and he would get a little bit better, but not that much. And he got to the point where he could work again, but only simple work. So he got a job in a warehouse. And I thought this was amazing because it shows you what kind of character he is, that he didn't have much money, he didn't have support, he had to figure this stuff out, he had to rely on himself. And so despite the fact that he had been taught in a university to do computer programming, he carried boxes in a warehouse for almost a year, which I don't think I could do that. Like, if when he told me that story, I thought a lot back to my experience in 2014, where I really couldn't function. And I used to tell people, like, I wouldn't have been able to hold a job down at McDonald's. Like, I would have had to do something like what he did, carry boxes in warehouses. And that's why I was on the verge of quitting. I had a job at Lazada at the time, and I was prepared to quit at 3 different occasions, and I didn't. And I was just holding out, but I felt awful. And luckily, by the end of 2014, so some months later, I had more or less like stumbled upon what ended up helping me get out of that situation. But that was pure luck, right? Like, there's so many stories I hear of now where people spend so much more time trying to put together this whole dental TMJ thing. And here I was lucky enough to have it happen within a few months, so I didn't even have to leave my job. But like, I could just imagine if I had spent another year or two searching for the answers, I would have had to probably like done some kind of menial work, just like Ivan, which is scary because that's like, it's not the menial work part, but it's kind of that whole feeling that you've gone backwards in life a lot. I can totally get Ivan from that perspective. So anyway, he was doing a lot of manual therapy. He was doing some meditation, different things, and he was trying to figure out how to get out. And he had very little savings, so he was looking at different DIY approaches. He had found the blog Tooth. He came upon an article or a story written about me back in the day on Tooth blog. And so that's how he kind of heard my name. And he was looking at Reddit sometime, reading reviews about Starecta, because they talk about Starecta on Tooth a fair bit. And my story is about my early Starecta journey in 2014 and 15. So he was reading about Starecta. He even wrote to Marino Conti, the founder of Starecta, and he was getting set to try it when he came across a thread where I had commented, and this is a comment that I had made a long time ago about my journey where I no longer did Starecta, but rather I was using a MyBrace A1 at the time. And he clicked, because it sounded a bit like my story that he was familiar with from the Tooth blog. He clicked on my user profile, and then he saw more recent Reddit comments and posts that I had made, and he saw that, oh, well, this is the Ken that was on this Tooth blog. It's important to understand that this Tooth blog, like, for some reason, especially in Russia and Ukraine, has blown up. Like, it's huge. I've had many people from Russia and Ukraine write to me over the years because of this blog post. And he was telling me sometime like this, most people that are in this dental world in Russia like know who I am because of this post, which is pretty funny. He wrote to me. I said, hey, yeah, I've got a trial group. I'm preparing to launch this new Revive thing. Why don't you join? And he decided he would. So he purchased a Revive. That was in mid-September. And it was going to take a couple weeks to send him the rubber appliance. And so he asked me, Ken, what can I do in the meantime? And he didn't have a splint to use. So I explained to him what I used to do with just packing a lot of paper towels into the mouth and kind of like holding the occlusion open so that the teeth didn't touch. So he did that. And right away, the next day, he started writing me like, oh, wow, like it's doing something. It's like having this good effect. I'm sleeping better. My cheeks improved. My nasal breathing improved. My neck felt better. He was inspired by that. And then in early October, at the beginning of October, he got his Revive 1 appliance, the rubber appliance that we mailed to him. And he started wearing it. And they said, oh, like it's very painful. And I've told folks, and this is the experience of almost anyone that starts wearing this, like it's hard to wear at the beginning. Like your gums and things get sore and the tissue rips sometimes. So this happened to him. And so he would take breaks from it and go back to the putting paper towels into his mouth. And he asked me what he could do to kind of, instead of the paper towels, and I said, hey, when your gums and stuff are sore, you can get a flat plane splint. And this flat plane splint can also help you track your progress because what I do, and I call it a tracking splint, I even out the contacts on the splint, and then you can see as your curve of speed develops on the splint. So he liked that idea, and he went to a dentist that I recommended in Moscow and got one made. So he got it made such that the contacts in the two back teeth, it was a lower splint. Contacts in two back teeth are even. So you use this articulating paper, you check that the contacts are even. And then he checked his contacts about a week later, and already the contacts were not even on the back teeth, and rather like the front teeth had hit the front of the splint, which means that you need to add more to the back. And this is how the whole process works. Like this is how you develop this curve of speed. And he'd made some amazing progress. So he said like his one quote was, today I worked from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. without a break and worked productively. This is amazing. I haven't worked like this in a long time. So I was really proud of him, happy for him. And he was a great example of a person with a great attitude that in a short amount of time was making great progress. And a lot of it comes down to attitude, right? Like I gave him feedback. He asked a lot of questions. He would write in his journal a few times a week. I would respond back. And this attitude, this like proactiveness that he has, like I have zero doubts he's going to continue to improve and do really great. And like, I wouldn't even say like, I'm sure he's going to get out of all of his symptoms, which he's well on his way. I actually think like with his approach and his mindset, like he will in some time, and I'm not sure how much, like he will be feeling better than he ever has in his entire life. Like I am very confident of that. When you take a person, because that's the mindset I had, those type of people, they just want to take this as far as it goes because they see its impact in their lives. My last thoughts are, Ivan is going to be one of the first of many, right? I see there's other people making the type of progress Ivan is right now, and you'll hear more and more of these stories coming out of Revive because I know how this thing works. And if a person has the right attitude and they do what I tell them to do, I will get them out. Like I give that as my personal guarantee to the folks in Revive. I care a lot about sticking to that responsibility. Really excited for where things are going to go and creating a lot more stories like Ivan's.